technologies in the rest of the day, it will be very important to understand how these can be put to use. And that's something that each of the professors knowing really helps in percolating that to the students, as I spoke about earlier. Before we get into that broadly, wanted to set the context in terms of the areas that this discussion will touch upon. It will touch upon the three major areas, right? Artificial intelligence. But if you try to draw in one diagram, artificial intelligence is the larger ambit of things, and a subset of artificial intelligence is what is known as machine learning, because artificial intelligence covers a lot of areas, including machine learning and other areas like how robotics could be utilized, or how other methods of data sciences could be applied, etc. Right? So artificial intelligence is an overarching umbrella, a subset of that being machine learning. And machine learning again comes with a lot of techniques and methods, right? It could be based on various things like whatever you would have learned around, like decision trees, various algorithms, etc. Whereas deep learning specifically focuses on one kind of a machine learning that is based on neural networks. As all of you may be very familiar with, neural networks are something that tries to mimic the activities of the brain, right? While it is very, very difficult to mimic the exact way the brain behaves, because there are certain aspects of brain which are very difficult to understand. But what neural networks try to understand is replicate the basic function of a neuron, right? Which works based on receiving a signal and then passing on the signal, right? Similar way, in the neural networks, every single node, node is the term that we use in lieu of neuron of the brain, tries to receive a signal and pass on a signal, and while they pass it on with a certain weight, right? And that determines how an outcome could be looked at. It could be described or predicted, right? Let me put it that way. And the reason being, these neural networks, especially the deep learning neural networks, could be utilized both in a very structured manner, or I can say an unsupervised manner, to give them that outcome and then train them on the outcome models. The second approach could be a very, very unsupervised model, where you put the neural networks to understand the different nuances of the data by itself, and then create clusters or classify the data so that the similar performing things can be utilized very well, right? So this particular characteristic of the neural networks is what being highly utilized for many of these features, like image recognition, a video recognition, a voice recognition, or natural language processing, right? So these kind of applications are very well supported because of this particular inherent nature of neural networks, right? And of course, the neural networks can be enhanced by having multi-layer architecture, and having something like an reinforcement learnings, and generative learnings, right, where you pass on the learnings from one particular stage to the next particular stage, etc., right? So that makes this particular set of method to be very, very useful when it comes to something like what typically a brain can do, right? A brain can look at an object and understand what type of an object it is, whether it's a human, or whether it's a dog, or whether it is a cat, or for that matter, even trying to understand what one individual is talking to another individual, right? Well, this is the foundation on which we are going to have these discussions, broadly on artificial intelligence, to a next level in machine learning, and more deeper into the deep learning space, right? If you looked at many of these techniques, for example, even 2 decades back, neural networks existed. When I, for example, 22 years back, when I was building a model to predict which sectors are more profitable, or what type of offers can be given to people, so that that can go hand in hand for an airline sector, right? I've used the models of neural networks. But what has changed over the last 22 years is the tremendous amount of data that is available, the method to store, manage, and provide this data for these algorithms to explore them. That's one important change. And second important change is the tremendous amount of power that has come into our compute systems, right? So today, a lot of GPU-based systems are available, which can process the humongous amount of data within a reasonable time frame, right? So this big improvement in terms of the availability of data and the ability to store the data and manage the data, as well as the ability to process the data in terms of the compute, has put together these two things together, making the deep learning models to become more successful and easy. So today, if you see, many of the applications that we are having, even in our mobile, uses a lot of these deep learning technologies. For example, you guys maybe might have used Google Lens or a Google Translate. They in turn use deep learning methods in the background, right? So while the building the models and training the models happens on Google's data centers or on the cloud, to be more precise, the application of it can happen in the edge, like your mobile, right? So that's the development of the technology that is helping us to leverage these techniques better. So this is just a timeline in terms of how all these things have evolved. But let us get back to the focus area of the topic that we have been talking about. I just picked up few thoughts that have come from a different areas, right? United Nations predicts about 840 million people, right? That's about 84 crores of people will be affected by hunger by 2030, right? And the reasons could be very varied, right? One, the increase in population, and more importantly, increase in population in a very what I can say, in a very localized fashion, right? It's not that globally the population is increasing, but the population is increasing at the packets of certain countries, certain continents, whereas in other places there is a very highly aging population that is happening, right? So this disparate growth in population is one reason. Second, there is an all of us are very well aware of this global impact on climate. The third reason is there is an very decreased amount of resources available, right? So there is a water scarcity that is there in many parts of the world. Similarly, the soil quality is depleting. So there are like various such natural reasons why this kind of an impact could happen. So that's one problem that world is going to face in less than a decade, right? Second, all of you may be very familiar with this problem, especially the India has, right? In every family, there are at least one diabetic patient today, right? So there is an estimate by 2025, there will be at least 5.7 million people who will have severe diabetic retinopathy. By the way, what is diabetic retinopathy? It is loss of vision due to diabetes. So this is a very specialized field in the field of ophthalmology, where specialized doctors have to closely examine the details of the eye and decide whether the patient has the chances of getting impacted due to diabetic retinopathy. And if the diagnosis as well as the treatment starts early, it is very easy to manage this, right? Otherwise, it can lead to loss of vision. This being another issue that India specifically faces, and this is a problem at the global level as well, but for India, it is very acute. These numbers are specific to India. I'm going to talk about a third problem, which all of you may be again familiar with. The crime rates, especially the white collar crime rates and cyber crimes, have increased 300% since the start of the pandemic. That's an data by an IMC group. Okay. While these are some negative things that we are hearing about, there are some positive things from a business standpoint as well. There's a company called Lemonade in the United States that focuses on insurance, right? And you know, insurance is a very, very sophisticated domain, and where there are giants who have been running for literally hundreds of years. In India, like an LIC, and in the global market, if you look at, there are companies like AIG, Zurich Insurance, and these are very, very prominent insurance providers. And you know, when you go for a claim, it takes a lot of time, right? At minimum, it will take 24 hours. A maximum, it can run into weeks. But Lemonade as an insurance company promises that they could process an insurance claim in 3 seconds. Okay, and this was a record sort of a thing where somebody put in property insurance claim for about $970, and the moment that he put that, within 3 seconds, the thing got approved. And it didn't get approved just like that. It has validated the claim. It has validated a damage to the property. It has validated what the insurance entitlement is. And at the same time, it ran 18 different checks for commonly known fraud patterns. And then it got approved. Okay. Another one, an interesting one, all of us or many of the people today spend a lot of time, especially when there is a lockdown, etc., watching things on the OTT streaming services, right? Like the Netflix, the Amazon Prime, Hotstar kind of a thing, right? And there is this company, Netflix, which has garnered 34.4% of this market share during these times, where the world has been watching a lot of things on the OTT. You know what is common among all these things? Be the problems and where the solution can come, or where there are certain companies that are doing very well. The common thing across all of them is they are using deep learning. Now I'll come to how it is being utilized, right? This how part is what will be of interest to all of you. If you look at the world hunger problem, right? Generally, it's a very common thing to say that, like, now, oh, we are not solving world hunger, right? But interestingly, AI and deep learning is solving or trying to solve world hunger. So there is something called as precision agriculture that is getting experimented at this point in time, where there are a lot of sensor data, right? IoT data that measures the humidity in the air, the quality of the soil, the humidity in the soil, right? The growth rate of the plant, and the nutrient requirements of the plant, and then decide in terms of how much quantity of water and how much quantity of other required nutrients has to be supplied to the plants, so that the yield from each one of the plant increases very well, right? So there is a good possibility, if the precision agriculture is implemented successfully, then the world, the 840 million people that we are that are projected to be affected by hunger by 2030 may no longer get affected. We will be able to feed the entire world. There will be enough food grains that can be generated by these precision agriculture to feed the entire world. And remember, it is not only about feeding the entire world. The demand for biofuels are increasing. Even that can get handled by the precision agriculture. So here, if you look at what is important, is not only having the IoT chips, but the ability to get the data from that, store the data, manage the data, and build models that guides the, again, machines to provide a very, very a definite or a precise quantity of water and nutrients to the plants. And that would become possible due to deep learning. Second point, we talked about diabetic retinopathy. And thankfully, here we already have the inventions. Even in Wipro, we have built an AI model that can leverage special cameras-based photographs of the eyes. The special cameras are at this point in time required for taking a closer examination of the eyes, and the pictures can be taken, and that can be dealt by models, AI and deep learning models, to determine who exactly has the likelihood of getting diabetic retinopathy, what are the chances, and by when they will get it, so that a predictive and corrective action can be taken upfront. And for some of you may be aware of this, there is an eye hospital in Mumbai that has already started using a model similar to this for dealing with diabetic retinopathy. So this helps really in terms of addressing a vast spectrum of people. For example, even today in India, there are not many lab facilities that are available at remote places, right? Generally, the bigger cities have all the facilities. So this is something that can help have the widespread of that. Similar models exist for many of these diabetes, not only diabetes or diabetic retinopathy, but many of the diagnosis aspects. For example, to examine a person having the chances of a pneumonia or a COVID using X-rays is another AI method that has been leveraged. Again, it got started using at the start of the last year COVID pandemic, where the RT-PCR based tests were becoming difficult. Something like this, X-ray based options were being leveraged, especially in the remote villages. Again, completely AI driven, then overloading our medical fraternity with all the loads, rather giving them a very concise and precise kind of problems that are filtered by AI. Third, today, even in India, a lot of police departments have started leveraging AI and deep learning methods. And there are examples where the police has reached the place of potential theft or a potential murder even before that happened, based on these deep learning methods, where you can really predict what kind of people are going to get into this kind of an activity, when, and more importantly, where, right? So these three combination helps polices to avoid some of these incidents. And if you look at world level, you can go back and check, there's a significant drop in the normal crime rates, while the cyber crimes are increasing, and there's the reduction in normal crime rate is completely attributable to AI. And similar thing is being experimented on the cyber crimes as we speak. Netflix no-brainer, it gives you a very, very appropriate suggestion in terms of what programs to watch next, what movies to watch next, or what series to watch next. And that's based on deep learning methods that includes the demographic information that it has gathered about the individual, but also that marries with the rest of their customer profiling ecosystem by doing efficient clustering methods to give these recommendations of the next programs. And that is what is helping Netflix really to improve the viewership. Lemonade, again, uses AI and deep learning based methods specifically to address the overall spectrum of financial transaction, right? Not only checking for the validity of the claim or inspecting the property, etc., but also to check on the different kind of fraudulent possibilities that exist, right? And they do the validations before making this possible. So the reason why I wanted to talk about these cases, of course, there are plenty of other examples. For example, there is an example on Google Translate's translation becoming much better, uses deep learning, right? There was a marked difference in their performance when they use the regular AI techniques versus when they started using the deep learning techniques. The accuracy of their translations become multifold improved. So the reason I talked about all these cases is that irrespective of the discipline or the course or the work that is going to happen in future, it all will be powered by AI, right? So you can see a police needs an AI knowledge, right? An agriculturalist, a farmer needs an AI knowledge. Somebody who is in the entertainment industry needs AI knowledge, right? Somebody in the medical fraternity needs an AI knowledge. So AI is going to be really, really pervasive. It has already started becoming pervasive if you don't know. Many a times when you are reaching out to a service provider, be it somebody who provides an entertainment or something that you are checking within customer service of any of the companies, many times you may be actually talking to a bot, not to a real human being. right? For example, in Wipro, most of the technical problems and the general HR related problems, when we try to reach out to a system or raise an helpline, that is being addressed today by an AI based bot than an actual human being. It goes to a real human being only when there are no resolutions within a certain time frame by the bots, and they decide in terms of this has to go to a human being. So that's the reality. So everywhere AI is going to play a very important role, and it's important to have an deep knowledge about all of these things. I just wanted to play a quick video. And guys, somebody let me know if you are able to see this.
Get up to 60% off on your favorite restaurant.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You are able to see, right?
Every day on Zomato.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Just to watch this video, I wanted to ask you some observations on this.
Now it's not visible, sir.
Oh, you're not able to see? Give me a minute. Hope you're able to see it now.
So video is not visible, sir.
Oh, is it? I thought it is visible. Just give me 1 minute. It's making check. There is some problem in sharing this. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible.
Okay. You are seeing a small video?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, while playing the video, there is some problem, sir.
So what you're seeing is actually an car manufacturing factory operations. Okay, I get a message saying that the video playing is not visible. So I'll do one
Yeah,
thing. I'll
yes.
probably pause here. Um, I will pass on the presentation, and there is a link, and you will be able to see it then. Okay, my intention was actually to show the Kia car factory video, right? The assembly line looks something like this, and it says that how many products are currently in production, and what is the cycle time, and the cycle time is in seconds. And you can see a series of cars that are coming out. And if you try to closely observe this, you will not find a human being on this floor. It's completely being driven by machines. And how? It's all powered by AI and robotics, where the deep learning models guide the robots to build a very, very precision driven manufacturing, right? So that's where the faults could become extremely minimal. The need for human intervention becomes minimal. And in general, such things are very, very human intensive in nature, right? And that gets suddenly reduced significantly. And because of that, the possibility of accidents also gets reduced significantly on the factory floor. So this is not the manufacturing of the future, and this is the current manufacturing process for many of the industries, especially in the automobile sector in the Western worlds. So going back to the point, AI is going to be very, very pervasive, and it will make many of the jobs redundant. But at the same time, there will be plenty of jobs which would need the knowledge of AI. And for example, in this case, mechanical engineering as a combination that is required to be hired and working on a car factory. It is true for multiple other professions. For example, the highly human intensive industry again is thought to be lawyers, because the law has to be interpreted, and then only it can be given a meaning, and the point can be argued in a court of law. But if you look at even that is changing, where there are AI based models that are understanding these nuances of the laws and interpreting it, and then providing the inputs for the lawyers to take it forward. And that is what we call it as an augmented intelligence, where AI systems provide information to human beings, and then human beings take the final call, right? What that's known as augmented intelligence, and that is something that is again has taken a very prominent place in the work culture of today. So well, I'll pause here for any questions or thoughts from anyone before I move on to the next segment of this topic. I see some raised hands. I don't know if there are questions, or this is the reason I thought I'll pass. Okay. If there is nothing, you can again reach out at any point in time before we conclude the session. If AI is going to be so pervasive, if it is going to be all this helpful, then we should all be bracing this full-handedly, right? And here is a global AI impact, and this is a very recent report by McKinsey. It got released in June. This is the size in terms of the trillions of dollars that AI would open up as a value potential, right? What you see on the darker shade is something, or the larger circle is something that all analytics will provide. That is including AI, all sorts of analytics, that is both the descriptive, prescriptive, predictive analytics along with AI will produce. That is estimated to be somewhere in the vicinity of 9.5 trillion to 15.5 trillion. AI alone will contribute about 3.5 trillion to about 6 trillion kind of a value potential. So you can imagine this being the size of this market, how many employments would get generated, and how it is important for different people in different disciplines to learn AI even outside of computer science department. And there are various industries that are reflected here, like marketing, sales, supply chain, finance, HR, strategy, product development, right? So in every single sector, there is a huge impact that AI will create in the coming years. Having said that, I've given a collection of different use cases for deep learning, and these are something that you can experiment. And actually, as part of Wipro and NASCAM initiative, we train a lot of professors on AI skills, right? And recently, I had the privilege of looking at the AI solutions that are built by a number of professors as part of a contest that we ran. And there were some very interesting things, right? For example, a collection of professors have developed a solution that will look at the cameras of the computer, and they have written a very lightweight code to be executed on the client side to look at how attentive the student is, how many times he is moving away from the screen, how many times he is looking outside the screen, right? Based on the determining how attentive the student is and providing attendance, right? Something that will be very relevant for all of you. There is another set of professors who have developed a program that looks at conducting an MCQ based examination for the students, evaluating that, and then making recommendations based on the marks scored for the students on what type of other courses they can take, and who from within the class they can take as a mentor based on the marks scored from them, right? For that specific and particular subject areas. That was another application built by another set of professors. So then there was a third set of professors who have developed a complete online learning kind of a module for Python, right? Where students can ask questions and the system will teach them or refer them to relevant segments of the training material to look at, so that they can learn that functionalities. So like in education, there are multiple other things. I've not included them here. I just thought I will talk about it while we are talking about other industries. But having said that, here are a few other examples of what is happening due to AI. In 2013, this happened. I'm not saying that this is not happening now, but it happened 2013 in a very significant manner. There was $130 billion of stock value that got wiped off because one AI program, and there is this big thing called in stock market, something called as an algorithmic trading, right? And this algorithmic trading coupled with looking for information from the market, it interpreted one of the tweets as an explosion that happened and that injured the US president, the then US President Barack Obama, right? And the AI system thought that is something that could be very, very disastrous. If something can happen, something as an explosion can happen and injure the US president, that would be very, very detrimental to the financial markets. And it placed a series of sell orders, making the market crash. And investors lost about 130 billion. And if you look at what had happened, this is a completely unsupervised and uncontrolled AI system that has been given the methods to interpret what is happening in the environment, right? Here in this case, it monitored the tweets, and based on that, it came to the conclusion that it is going to be disastrous and placed an order, and that melted the markets. And look at some other thing happened. Microsoft released an artificial intelligence chatbot called Tay. In 2016, this happened, right? And within 16 hours, they have to shut down the AI bot. This was created to chat with the people on Twitter, to talk about the various things that Microsoft is doing, etc. And suddenly it started using bad words. How did that happen? There were people who used abusive language with this chatbot, and this being something that quickly learns from what is being told to it or what is being what is the kind of method it faces, it reciprocates that, right? So when people used abusive words on that, it thought, oh, this is like a common human behavior, so let me acquire that. And it learned all abusive words and it started using it on everybody, thinking that that's a nature it should be, right? So then Microsoft has forced to shut it down within 16 hours. And that's the reason probably somebody like an Elon Musk made a statement saying that AI is far more dangerous than the nukes. And you know what the full view of Elon Musk is? If something goes wrong in AI, right, a 95% of humanity can get impacted or even wiped off. And this is not only Elon Musk as a business guy making the statement. This was a similar statement that was made by Stephen Hawking, right? The very, very renowned scientist of the current century. He said that unless we learn how to prepare for and avoid the potential risks of AI could be the worst event in the history of our civilization. And that is true, right? And that has become evident based on these two examples. Imagine if that thing was not controlled in 2013, that 130 billion could have easily run into multi-trillions. Similarly, if an artificial intelligence bot can learn bad words and then use it on people, imagine what can happen. For example, if the machines that are used for manufacturing learns something destructive, what can happen? It can become unruly, right? Whatever you have seen in the movies like the Endiran and 2.0, etc., can become a reality. And that's where ethics becomes a very, very, very important of AI, right? And there are at least 6 different facets of ethics that are very important. One, transparency. When a model has been built, a code has been written, has to be fully transparent in terms of what are the intentions of the code and what is the outcome it is generating. And there has to be a clear governance around this transparency of the code base. Otherwise, a malicious code, either intended or unintended, can become very, very disastrous. And it has to be explainable too. I'll come to this point specifically in the context of deep learning. Explainable means why it is taking a particular decision, the AI system is taking a particular decision, should be readable for a human. For example, in the previous case where I spoke about an AI program deciding to sell off a series of stocks, it is very clearly traceable that it interpreted a particular tweet to be the cause, and then the source or the truthfulness of the tweet has been validated, and when it is realized that it is not true, there is a counteraction that could have been taken and stopped. If people didn't even know why this is happening, it will be very difficult for them to stop. So that's why realizing why an AI system is taking a particular decision becomes very important, explainable, right? But in deep learning, that is going to be an issue. Given that deep learning models are based on neural networks, explainability is extremely thin because remember, unlike other modeling techniques, deep learning techniques are black box oriented. You may not really understand why a particular decision has been taken because it's all got covered in the form of the weights and the neuron relationships and the matrices. So having a mechanism for explainability getting attached to that becomes all the more important. Third, addressing data bias. I'll probably talk about an algorithmic bias and then come to data bias because these are very relevant and related ones. There are biases that exist within the algorithms naturally, and that is very important. For example, important to address. For example, when the natural language processing algorithms were released by all the giants like your AWS, Googles, and Microsofts of the world, what had happened is that it was able to recognize the voice of white males, but it was not able to recognize the voices of non-whites or an African American males specifically that clearly, and everybody else fell in between. And that's a clear bias in the algorithm, right? Because it is able to understand the male voices, especially the white male voices, and not able to recognize others. So how you address this algorithmic biases? By providing that a vast set of data that represents an equal number of training data sets across all the spectrum of data becomes very, very important, right? So that's where the algorithmic bias comes into picture, and something that goes hand in hand with that is a data bias. For example, this specifically happened with Amazon, right? When they started hiring people using an AI-based engine, right? Again, a classical example of how AI is being utilized for different industries. The job of an interviewer, the job of an HR was actually taken by AI programs, right? So they interviewed candidates and then selected. And it so happened that all the people who got selected were males. The reason was the training data set used for training this AI recruiter was all based on the last 10-year data where predominantly males have been hired into the job. So it rejected females by default as part of the process. And again, AWS has to shut down this AI recruiter and then start reworking on building a new models. And there are multiple other cases. For example, in a bank scenario, it started rejecting all the loan applications coming from non-whites and things like that, right? So these are all the kind of issues you will face when you're looking at an biases coming out of this algorithmic bias or data bias. The fifth one, which is again very important, is accountability. For example, you saw this scenario of the manufacturing plant. Similar things exist in car, right? So today there are cars that are auto run, which means the driverless cars, right? So they can run on their own. If there is an accident that happens because of this car, who takes the ownership? When an individual is driving a car and an accident happens, the driver is penalized for it, right? At minimum, his license gets revoked. At maximum, he is jailed. But what happens if a driverless car creates an accident? It's AI driven. Who takes the ownership for it, right? So the fixing and accountability becomes very important. And there are a lot of considerations, and every single government is working on this in terms of fixing the accountability. In this case, probably the AI engineer who developed or wrote the code takes the accountability for the accident that happened. Look at the risk that it can create for the AI engineers. And finally, human dignity has to be considered in terms of how AI programs response to people. The example of the chatbot that picked up abusive words and started talking to people. How you can avoid all this, right? So these are all kind of the principles that we call it as AI ethics that have to be inbuilt into every single model that have been that are getting built. So it's important for all of you to understand these nuances or aspects of ethics in AI and pass on that to your students as they build the future AI systems. We need to be sure that no driverless car comes and hits us, and we have been treated with dignity. So it's important to pass on these principles to the students. And that's all I wanted to cover today. Then I had a few myths around AI, but I will leave for your offline reading because many of these things you will be very familiar with. Having said that, if there are questions, I am more than happy to take them. And all the very best for your learning sessions over the next 5 days.
Good morning, one and all. Hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am, audible.
Okay, sir. Sir, thank you very much for the excellent introduction on deep learning, sir. And you have discussed a lot of applications, sir. Diabetic retinopathy, precision agriculture, Lemonade, AI in marketing, AI in education system. And you have introduced so many new concepts also. And you have also discussed what Wipro is doing in AI in deep learning, sir. It was quite inspiring. And also I have discussed the ethics in deep learning. So what are the things we have to follow and how much dignity we have to give, how much importance we have to give to AI. So it was quite interesting. Dear participants, if you have any queries, please ask, please unmute your mic and ask the question. Or you can post it in the chat box also. Any questions? Okay, if there is no question, I would like to thank our resource person on behalf of our management, principal madam and HOD. I would like to once again thank our resource person for the excellent introduction to deep learning. I think sir has touched all the 14 sessions. You'll be getting very good knowledge on deep learning. Thank you very much. Happy learning. Your next session will be at 2:30 p.m. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.